from the audience. We have a lot of questions and not a whole lot of time, so forgive us if we don't ask your specific question. I'm hoping that the candidates can stay a little bit afterwards and answer questions one-on-one. Can the candidates do that? Yes, excellent. And I'm also going to avoid questions that are directed specifically at one or other of the candidates and give each, I'm going to just ask general questions that each of the candidates can answer. So the responses are going to be limited to a minute each, and please keep your answers as short as possible so we can get through as many as we can. The first one, what is your position with respect to the housing for safety personnel, police, fire personnel, health workers in the downtown plan? I think the question mainly is, Berkeley's an expensive place to live. What can we do to help actually keep our service workers and the people who are protecting us living in the city?
Hello. Could you please stand up and face the audience when you're announcing the questions?
Could you not hear that? Okay, I'll bring them up here. What is your position with respect to housing for safety personnel, police, fire, health workers in the new downtown plan, and how can we keep people protecting us and serving us living in this expensive city?
Who's first?
Oh, Jessica.
So I strongly support ensuring that we have housing for our police, our fire, as well as people who work for the city and people who work in Berkeley. But Measure R is not a plan, and the housing that is proposed to be developed in Measure R provides no guarantee that that housing will go towards police or fire or service workers. We do need to create more workforce housing in Berkeley. We have a jobs housing balance. But we need to make sure the housing we are creating will actually be affordable for these people so that they can actually live in the downtown and we can reduce the trips that they're making to and from work. So I strongly support, as part of any downtown plan that goes forward, prioritizing that some of the housing that's being developed goes towards our public safety officers and people who work in Berkeley, but Measure R doesn't do that. And Measure R provides no assurance that we will actually get a single unit of affordable housing downtown. I think that's a mistake. If we want to create workforce housing, to have a diversity of people in our downtown, we need to make sure it's in our plans.
Well, I think the best way to increase...
Who are you, please?
Pardon?
Who are you, please?
I'm Baron Paul. I think the best way to increase housing in the downtown is basically increasing supply. I studied economics, and it's basically supply and demand. And if we have a rare resource that everybody wants, the prices are just going to go through the roof. And that's kind of what has happened. We had a long-term period where we haven't increased any of the housing supply. And the best way to create that is also have the community intertwined. The people who want to live near work, we should try to provide as much housing as we can. And I think the best way to do it is to be equitable to everybody. And if you increase the supply, basically the price will go down for everybody. And the people who need to or really want to live in a certain place, they're the ones that are going to try to get that place the most. And it's basically, if we want more housing, we have to create more housing. Thank you.
Well, I'm a strong advocate for affordable housing. In my walks around the district, I find school teachers and people who just cannot live elsewhere except in Berkeley in their affordable housing, in their rental housing. And it's critical. There's a 900-person waiting list for the Brower Center housing, which is only about 100 units. So how do we develop housing? One vehicle is to actually do for-profit housing and require the developer to give in lieu fees, which then can be put into the Housing Trust Fund and used as a leverage to get a lot more housing. One of the housing projects we did on Telegraph, There was $880,000 that the developer had to give directly to the city's housing trust fund. That leverages to about 15 or 20 housing units that are affordable. So that's one way to do it. And I strongly hope that we could basically have a balance. The city council is obviously committed to affordable housing because they did finance the Brower Center.
Next question here is a very quick one. Were you in support of the Berkeley Pools campaign bond measure in June 2010? Jesse, if it's not a yes or no, you can just answer it.
Absolutely. And I see Joanne Cook here is one of the leaders of the campaign who has endorsed my campaign for re-election. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. And so we need to make sure that we have a new warm pool built to continue Donna's vision to make sure that we have a warm pool for our disabled, for our seniors, for children, and for families. And we need to make sure that we improve our aquatics facilities in Berkeley. That may involve putting another measure on the ballot. Unfortunately, the measure was on the June ballot at a time when there was very low voter turnout. And had it been on the ballot this November, it might have passed, but I'm a strong advocate for making sure that we get a new warm pool built in Berkeley at its current size, and also that we can rehab our pools so we can continue to provide the great aquatics programs that we provide to families in Berkeley.
In my 46 years of living in Berkeley, I have not voted once against any tax measure that improved our community services, and I certainly did not vote against that measure for the pools. And I think that's a great opportunity for us to get better pools. But unfortunately, you know, the citizens are stressed with the economy. So what do you do to basically get more funds into public service investment? We talk about the Center Street project. That's a $15 to $20 million project. How can we afford that? Do you expect citizens to vote that much money to do it? So what we have to do is we have to team up with businesses and make something like that happen. We incrementally work with them to close the thing partially and to see if they'll go along with it instead of trying to get a very lovely idea but a very expensive idea. So I strongly support all public services. I only think I will ever vote against a measure that will support our schools or support our pools or support our medical services. Thank you.
I think with issues about providing community services, we have to work all together and have a common vision and goal. The problem is there seems to be different factions in our city. One city group that wants a lot of services, and then there's these people called homeowners that have to pay for all the services. Now, Berkeley's been a very generous city in allocating these things, and we just have to be sure that when we allocate something, that it gets used for what we say it's going to be allocated for, and that the uses get basically at the highest efficiency or what the most people want. And I advocate that we set out what we want to do, and then what we say is, you know, what are the resources that we have available, and what can we provide the best amount of goods for the greatest amount of citizens. And pools are very important. We need to teach our kids to swim. We need to have recreational places for people. We need a lot of different services, and what we should do is see where we can provide the greatest amount of good for the resources we have.
Okay, so excluding Measure R and downtown development, what do you see are the three most critical issues facing the city? What are your top three priorities? I'm going to start with Jim.
Well, that's a good question. Let's see. I think one thing is the top priority is West Berkeley. West Berkeley needs to be a place for some of our R&D uses that are coming out of the university. Right now it is, there is a plan, we have a great West Berkeley plan which protects manufacturing and other uses like artist uses, but there has to be room for that R&D use in West Berkeley. And I'd like to see, on the Plan Commission, I'd like to see that move forward. Gosh, another thing, I've been so focused on the downtown and our neighborhood that I haven't thought of big issues. I think that public safety is still a big issue. On the bicycles, I think it's a really big issue because bicycle riding is really going up in numbers. I see mothers and fathers taking their kids to school, which I have to say horrifies me, or little trailers with their kids in it. But basically they're doing it and they want to do it, and we've got to make them make that safer. And I think our streets finally need to be better repaired, and I'm not sure how that's going to happen with the funding, but it would be great to get our potholes fixed.
I think a lot of these issues go hand in hand. I think one of the biggest things, let's get our downtown revitalized. Let's get the stores back. Let's get a place that people can walk to and shop. Let's make it a place where people feel safe, where they want to bring their families, where they want to enjoy time, where they want to spend their revenue that basically then gets recycled into our economy. Another thing is crime. Part of the problem is when you have blight and decay and basically people moving out of an area, it's hard to re-attract people in, and it also makes less desirable people want to spend time there, and not the people that you want to spend money. And we really, it's a service that we owe to the people who stuck around Berkeley and have had their businesses here for 30 years. I went down University Avenue and I talked to all these great schools like Al Asher's and Okolole and places that are almost institutional and have been providing invaluable contributions to our community by providing jobs and services and also resources. And if they can't make a living there, then they'll be forced to go somewhere else. So I say let's support them and create a safer downtown.
I'd say there are many issues. Many of these issues have come to the City Council's attention. The budget is a critically important issue that we're going to have to grapple with over the next few years. And we need to make sure that we are balancing our budget and maintaining critical city services such as our public safety services, making sure that we have police and fire services, to respond in the event of a disaster. Also to make sure that our health programs, our parks programs, that we have those services that taxpayers are paying for. And we can have streets repaved, we can have sidewalks fixed. What District 4 needs is an advocate on the City Council who will fight with the other council members to get District 4 to the top of the list. I am doing that, and I will continue to do that. Affordable housing is a critical issue, economic development, supporting our small businesses, permit streamlining to bring new businesses to vacant storefronts, and dealing with the issue of vacant storefronts. But we need independent and experienced leadership to make these things happen. And if you re-elect me, I hope to provide that for District 4.
Here's a District 4 specific question. There's a controversy surrounding the rebuilding of Temple Beth Israel's preschool. How would you use your position as the district representative to address the concerns of the neighbors? And it's Brent's turn.
Well, the first part is I think preschools are a very important part of the community. So I think the best way is to build consensus. Bring all the people who are interested in that particular issue together. Find out where they can agree on things first. Get those off the list. And then the things that are contentious, see what are the issues and see if there can be trade-offs or ways to solve these problems. There's a lot of added value if you have a preschool to a lot of people who basically have young kids. Whereas as other people are concerned about the traffic and the issues. And I think if everybody is trying to work together and find common goals, I think that can be achieved.
This is an issue I'm very much aware about. I've talked to neighbors in the immediate neighborhood. I've met with the congregation Beth Israel with neighbors. I am monitoring this issue very closely. Unfortunately, given that this is a pending land use issue, I cannot state a position on the project at this time. But I see my role as a city council member to be a mediator, to work with the temple and the neighbors to make sure that, if the project moves forward, that it has the least impacts on surrounding neighbors. Or if the project has conflicts, we need to consider that during the land use process, and maybe it's not appropriate for that permit to be approved. I have extensive experience working on land use issues in Berkeley, Prior to my service on the council, I've served on 4 different city commissions dealing with zoning and permitting issues. I was a member of the Zoning Adjustments Board for 2 years. I know how the permitting process works.